tax day and revisiting 2020 legal industry predictions, episode 115. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the firm differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today is a unique day because I'm recording this, or at least we're publishing this on July 15th, 2020, and normally tax day would be April 15th or the closest day if April 15th falls out on a holiday or a weekend. And this year, because of COVID, the tax deadline, at least the federal tax deadline, and most states, to the best of my knowledge, have extended the deadline to July 15th. That also means that some other deadlines have been extended as well. And although I don't want to focus on taxes in this episode, as an accountant and somebody who's entrenched in tax returns right now, I just wanted to highlight a few things. Number one, first of all, don't assume that your accountant has submitted your return for you unless you have positive confirmation of that. So make sure that you get in touch with your CPA, your tax preparer, and ask them to confirm that your return has been submitted. Also, one of the things, there's very few things that you could do after the tax year is over to effectuate change in your tax status. However, one of the things that you can do is putting money into a tax deferred account. So if you plan on putting money into a IRA, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, if you have a simple IRA for your business that's already established, you can't establish a new simple IRA in the once the year is over. But if you have one that's already been established, then you could still put money into there. So today's the deadline to do that. So if you want to get funds into an IRA for 2019 or a 529 account for your child, your grandchild, then you want to make sure to get that in today, and otherwise you lose your opportunity. This is the last moment that you have for that. If you are filing an extension of your tax return, there's a big common error that's made that by filing an extension, you are filing an extension to pay, and that's not the case. An extension, we're filing an extension for your tax return. There's an automatic extension, which, by the way, this year would not be a 6-month extension. It would be until October. But when you file an extension, it's an extension to file your final tax return. It is not an extension to pay. You're supposed to have been paying your taxes all year long through estimated tax payments, and when you file your tax return, it's the day of reckoning to reconcile everything and make sure that you've paid enough taxes, and if you've paid too much, that you get that money back. So if you're not filing your final tax return, you don't have that calculation. But if you've significantly underpaid your taxes, not only are you going to get hit with the bill of underpayment of taxes that you haven't paid throughout the year, but you're also going to get assessed late fees, penalties for paying late, as well as interest on the money that hasn't been paid. So you want to make sure that even if you're filing an extension to your tax return, that extension includes, or that you take care of making a payment, that you are making a payment if a payment is due with that extension that you're filing. So that's all I have to share about tax day. We're going to move on to our next topic. But before I do that, I want to just let you know that I offer a free coaching session if you're trying to achieve certain results in your law firm and you find that you're struggling to get the results that you're expecting. One thing that you could do is spend 90 minutes on the phone with me absolutely for free and we can work through and help you get some clarity as to what might be holding you back and what exactly is it that you're trying to achieve, and how can you move forward and achieve that. So if you're interested in taking me up on this offer, I have opened up some slots. So we only do a certain number of these calls every single month, cap them at 8 because I can't do more than that as far as the time commitment. So if you try to book a call and all 8 are taken, you just won't see any spots in the month. So you want to make sure that you jump on this right away if it's something you want to take me up on. So go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, and you'll be taken over to a scheduling page. There's a short questionnaire that you need to fill out, and then you'll be on my calendar. And I'm looking forward to having a chat with you and going through that coaching experience. I really think that it's going to help you in many, many ways. So in December, on December 10th, actually, I released episode 55 of the Profit with Law podcast. And in that episode, I gave my predictions for the legal industry for 2020. And now that we are in July, we're well on our way into the second half of 2020. And I wanted to revisit those predictions because a lot has happened in the first 2 quarters of 2020. And this is going to be a year that we never forget. It's kind of like September 11, 2001. For those of you who are really young in my audience, you're not going to be able to relate to this, but many of you will. Most Americans remember vividly what they were doing on that morning of September 11th, 2001, and clearly can articulate the details of their emotions during that time and their experience. And I think that what we've been going through with the COVID pandemic, not just here in the U.S., it's worldwide. Everywhere has been affected by it in some way. And this is going to be something that we're going to never forget. This is going to be one of those things that we talk to our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren about. I can just envision sitting on a rocking chair, really old, and talking to my great-grandchildren about this pandemic that we lived through, which is pretty mind-boggling and wild. But I wanted to go back and revisit the specific things that I talked about to see, has anything changed? Where are we headed? And what does this mean for you as your law firm goes? So if you didn't listen to episode 55, I invite you to hit pause here and go back and listen to it if you'd like. It's not a requirement. I'm going to run through each of these things with you. So one of the things I started off talking about is marketing, and I said that we're going to see a shift away from focusing on SEO, and we're going to see law firm owners and rainmakers within a law firm move to creating content and social media posts as their marketing efforts. I also talked about how we're going to move away from in-person networking events and networking that way, which is a very ineffective way of networking, to more strategic networking and virtual events to meet other peers and other business owners that or people that would be relevant in our target audience. So what's interesting about that is that we're definitely seeing, I'm at least seeing with the products that we're selling here, like we did the Get Clients Now workshop, which is perfectly squarely in the moving into the content and social media marketing side of things. And our sales for that were off the charts. Just had a lot of demand for it. And if you missed it, by the way, it's still available. You can purchase it for $97. It was a full day, 8-hour workshop. But you can, now that it's recorded and it's not live, you can go back and go through it over like a 5-day period in little bites. But at the end of the workshop, you have a full-fledged sales system in place to take somebody from when they become a lead. So from when they when they find out about you, you basically get them to opt in to provide their email address, their phone number, and then you send them a series of emails that are driving them to a phone conversation with you. And we've got a ton of great feedback on that product. We did it. It was Melanie Leonard, Mark Homer, myself. We had Maddie Martin and Andy Stickle as speakers as well. And it was a great lineup and really took you through. We gave you time to implement. It was a great experience. So if you're interested in that, go to profitwithlaw.com/get clients now, profitwithlaw.com/get clients now. And for $97, it can be yours and you can go through that process. So when you go to that URL, you'll see all the details. If you have any questions about it, you can check it out there. But anyway, what I noticed is that was it was a very successful promotion, and a lot of people are implementing that. Obviously, we have a tiny sampling of the population when it comes to the legal industry. But SEO has always been an expensive game. It's been a long-term game, and it's been a game that there's only one winner at. So we're not finding SEO to be a top priority, especially for smaller law firms. You can get a lot more bang for your buck as far as monetary expense or commitment of time, effort, and energy into your marketing efforts by focusing on creating content that's specifically designed for your target market and using social media to market your firm. The next prediction that I discussed is seeing an influx of coaches and experts, and honestly, I see that trend continuing. More and more people have been trying to figure out how to make money while they're home, and we're finding more attorneys turning into, creating themselves as coaches and experts. But what's also interesting is that as I meet more people, I'm also learning about more people that I didn't know before. I didn't have a relationship with them before, but they are a coach or an expert in the industry, and they've obviously been doing it for a while. Maybe they've authored a book a few years ago, or they clearly have a practice that's been around for a long time. So there's definitely more people that, even as I'm noticing the new ones, I'm also noticing some people that I didn't even know about the old ones. So what does this mean to you? Well, what it means to you is that you can be more selective with who you work with. And I encourage you to get to know the person before you sign up with them. Unfortunately, I've had people come to me and talk to me about bad experiences that they've had where they've spent a lot of money with a coach or an expert and didn't really get what they were promised. So you definitely want to make sure that you're comfortable with who it is that you're signing up with, which is why I don't understand why certain coaches and experts hide and don't really do anything client-facing until after the sales conversation, because how are you supposed to get to know them? I'm out here on the podcast. I'm running events. I'm constantly getting in front of my people so that you can experience me, so that you can get to know me, so that you can determine whether you like me, whether you think that we would mesh well together. By the time that I get somebody on a free coaching session, which ultimately potentially leads to one of our paid products to help you with growing your firm, by the time I get somebody on that free coaching session, most of the time they already know who I am. They already know that they like me, or otherwise they wouldn't be getting on the phone with me. Why would somebody want to get a free coaching session from somebody that they don't like, or somebody whose opinion they don't care about? So it's really interesting that some of them are just not out there. But when I highlighted in episode 55, I highlighted two things. One is that the space is going to get crowded, which means that the cream is going to rise to the top. So you're going to know who the good people are, and you're going to be able to be selective and select great talent. And then the other thing that we're gonna see is that um, there's market saturation. At some point, you're not going to be interested in talking to somebody to get help with your business, and we're gonna have to see what happens there. Like how do you move forward and grow your practice and get the support that you need? Some people are natural born, business people, entrepreneurs, action takers, and they just hit the ground running, and they don't need that level of support. But many other law firm owners, and maybe you, need some sort of guidance, whether it's information, how do I do something, or it's, hey, I need to be accountable to somebody. I need somebody to just hold my hand and just say, hey, you don't forget, you promised to do this, you got to get this done, or to collaborate with other peers, to learn from them, to get motivated by them. So what's going to happen with that industry, I do not know, but I do know that we're going to continue to see those coaches and experts appear as we go. The next thing that I had was increasing movement away from the billable hour model. And the only thing I can say is that one thing I did notice, at least with my community, and maybe it's because of how much I talk about it, or maybe it's just that, I'm attracting the people who, believe in what I believe in. But a lot of people who come through my coaching programs are already using some alternate collection model outside of the billable hour. They're doing flat fee pricing. They're doing contingency based work. They're doing subscription work, and which brings me to another one of the items on the list, which was more subscription products and services. But I am definitely seeing from my own experience that a lot of lawyers are already have embraced the fact that the billable hour is a broken model, and are moving away from that to another model. Now, there isn't one correct model. As a matter of fact, depending on the makeup of your firm and who you're serving, maybe a mixture of models would work for you. Maybe you do a combination of contingency and flat fee. So you're collecting some of that fee up front, and some of it is contingent on the result of the matter. So we're definitely seeing, at least on my end, we're seeing that the billable hour is becoming a lot less common. But there's still a ton of attorneys that are, billing by the hour. And I'll just highlight one of the things in the Clio Trends report, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something along these lines that the average solo attorney only bills for 2.2 hours of the day. So they work more than 40 hours a week, so it's greater than 8 hours a day of work, but they're only billing 2.2 hours of the day, and they're only collecting on 1.8 hours. I think those are the numbers, so don't quote me on it, but it's in that range, right? So I'm not far off if I'm remembering incorrectly. So that means that there's a accounts receivable problem. There's a problem with getting those funds through the door, and therefore you're probably serving people and providing services without collecting the money up front, which is part of the problem with the billable hour model. Really, the problem is that with the billable hour model, you take a retainer, and then from that retainer, you're taking your fees. And we do a piss poor job of hounding the client for that retainer replenishment. And notice the word I'm using is hounding, because that's what most law firm owners need to do. And that's one of the reasons that I really dislike the billable hour model, because it's distasteful in the relationship, in the attorney-client relationship. It's very difficult to try to get more money from your client, to get them to pay it, and they get frustrated, like, why am I getting such a big bill? Where did all this money go to? What was all this time spent on? And it just becomes a very tenuous situation that is not healthy for anybody. Enter flat fee or subscription, where they know clearly what their expenses are going to be. You have very clear parameters as to when those are getting collected. So, we start collecting the day that you sign your engagement with us. And then from there, maybe 50% of the way through, or whatever this mile marker is in the project, or what we're doing, we're going to take another 50%, or we're going to take another 25%, and then the last 25% upon completion, or something like that. So, you're collecting the money up front before you're doing the work, and you're not needing to stay on top of this hourly billing, and making sure that the money's coming in from the client, and having those rough and tough conversations. So we're definitely seeing that as something that's picking up, and we're going to see that increase over time. Also, one of the things I mentioned was more courses and DIY opportunities. So lawyers providing do-it-yourself options to their potential client base. And this I actually haven't seen pick up a lot. We did a one-day summit on it. We called it the Hidden Revenue Stream Summit. Many of you may have attended that. We promoted a product by James Wedmore called Business by Design to help you learn how to create those courses and DIY alternatives, and how to market them. But ultimately, it actually. So one thing that I did notice was it was an extremely hot topic. We promoted it only for about 7 days, and we brought in over 2,000 registrants to that event. But taking the next step and moving forward with, at least with purchasing Business by Design, which is, in my opinion, the best, easiest, and fastest way to do that. Our purchases, our conversions from that population of 2,000 was extremely low. So I don't see people. I see people with an interest level in the topic, and really wanting to kick the tires around, but I don't see them making big investments into it, which is a shame, because courses and information products in general are something that could be. It could dwarf the revenue and the profit of your law firm when you get it going and when it's working well for you. So there's a lot of potential there, and I'd love to see people harness that potential. So hopefully we'll see that ticking up in the second half of 2020. Then I touched on this, more subscription products and services, and that is, that's something that I am seeing some of that. I'm seeing a lot more flat fee work, rather than a subscription model. I only know of one attorney that's crossed my path so far in 2020 that is really using the subscription model the way that it sounds. And it's a tough one to navigate, because you got to be really, really clear on exactly what's included and what's not included, and that needs to be communicated very, very clearly to the client, so that there isn't any ill will when they send something for you to do and you say, hey, I'm sorry, but this is outside of the scope of our agreement. So that's always a rough thing to navigate. And it's a tough sell, because people are not used to buying legal services in that manner. But I definitely think that it's doable. I think that it's a good model. It's a great model, actually. So I do think that we're going to start seeing an uptick in that, but it's going to require, I don't think it's going to be 2020. I don't even think it's going to be 2021. I think it's going to take a long time for people to get used to that idea of paying that way, and for law firm owners to really embrace that method as a primary billing method. Now, I am going to add my own stuff here. So that's what we covered in episode 55 for our 2020 predictions. And by and large, I think that we've been pretty much on point with those, but some things that we didn't predict, like a pandemic. But what's happened is that the COVID pandemic and this experience of needing to stay at home and potentially work from home has done a lot of things that I haven't predicted, like accelerating the push to technology that's not tied specifically to the office. So moving towards a paperless environment, moving towards cloud-based practice management software, things like that. And the other thing that we're seeing is lawyers get scrappy. You got to bring in business somehow, and we're seeing a lot of lawyers that are deviating from what they normally would have done and moving into areas like coaching, consulting, and or even repackaging the services in different ways. But we're definitely seeing a lot of that. And it'll be interesting to watch when it's no longer required, when the pandemic is over and you can go back to business as usual, how much of that sticks, how much of that stays and becomes the norm for law firms moving forward. So I'd be very curious to see how that plays out. So I was actually planning to continue our financial discussion. I replayed the 2 episodes of the Profit First, where I go through the broad strokes and then I go through the detail of how to implement it. But I wanted to continue the financial conversation, but I decided to do this episode today because I felt like it's good to just, first of all, our 2020 prediction episode 55, is one of our most downloaded episodes out of all 115 episodes so far. So obviously people are interested in hearing that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do a check-in with that, and I also wanted to take a moment to talk about tax day. So next week when I come back, we're definitely going to dive into the financial conversation. I think that finances in when it comes to the law firm, it's probably one of the saddest industries in that so many law firm owners just don't understand the finances of their business. They're not doing a good job tracking it. And then once it's tracked, they don't know how to understand what the numbers mean, where there's room for improvement. Do I have to increase my revenue or can I cut some costs? How do I navigate those types of calculations and formulas? And finally, we should have a conversation about debt and what is good debt and what should you do for the survival of your firm. And we had some of these conversations around it when, talking about how to navigate COVID at the beginning. We did our 10-day COVID live stream, and this topic came up a bunch. But what I want to do is away from the COVID conversation, just regular run-of-the-mill doing business. You think that somebody who opens a retail store, let's say they open a restaurant, you think they're doing that completely out of savings, purely out of savings, or are they partnering with a bank or getting a loan from the SBA, somewhere where they have access to the capital required to start their business? So I'm just giving you a little bit of a taste here, but lawyers, when they start their practice, assume that all I need is me, myself, and I, and there's no expenses, and I can just get out there, do some work, bill by the hour, and it's 100% profit goes into my pocket. And then the reality is that that's not the way it works. And you need this, you need that, and everything becomes this deliberation of, should I get this? Should I invest in my firm? Should I invest in myself to do this next thing? And the reality is that shouldn't be a decision that you're making from the cash that's available in the bank. That should be a decision that you're making from a business planning perspective of what is the goal that I'm trying to achieve, and is this required to achieve the goal? And if it is, then let me find a way to get it done, even if that means that I need to go and borrow some funds to do that. So I'm excited to have those conversations. Too many clients that I've worked with were struggling to pay their people payroll cycle to payroll cycle. And I don't want to see you ever be in that position. I'd like to help with that conversation. So I'm looking forward to next Tuesday where we're going to cover that. And we do have a great, stellar interview coming your way. I'll give you a little teaser. Let me see who's on the schedule for episode 116. We've got Brandon Osterbein. I love this conversation with Brandon. He is just a fellow attorney, And what he has done is he has implemented profit first. I'm trying to remember exactly the conversation, but I think that he is a contingency-based firm who has properly implemented profit first into his organization. So great conversation. We actually recorded it a couple of months ago. So it's finally going to be coming out on Thursday. So I'm excited to share that with you this week as well. And one last thing. I should have started with this, but we have just crossed the 20,000 download mark, and I don't know what's good and what's not good. I have no idea. We could be growing really slowly compared to what a typical podcast would do, but I know that, and sure, there's going to be some downloads that are never listened to, but that means that 20,000. Well, it's not necessarily 20,000 people, right? Because one person can download multiple episodes, but 20,000 pieces of content that we have produced here has been downloaded strictly through the podcast medium. And it's mind-blowing, and I really appreciate you as our listener in being a part of that. And I'm going to invite you to leave a rating and review for the podcast. We desperately need ratings and reviews. We don't get enough of them, and I can ask till I'm blue in the face, but the reality is that, people are not going to make the effort unless they feel compelled to. And I'm just going to ask you, can you feel compelled to? It's not for me. It's not for me. It's for the person who is coming by and checking out the show. And then they want to see, is this something worth listening to? Should I go and listen to this show? And when they check it out and they see what people are saying about it, that will help them decide. And we have a ton of great content here. And I can't imagine that it wouldn't be worthwhile for somebody to check it out. So if you leave a rating and review, that can help. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to highlight, the most recent review that we have on here, we've actually got a couple of new ones, so I'll do them both. Somebody, Viva JF is the username, says, fantastic podcast, 5 stars. Moshe stays on point and up to date with relevant and useful topics to help firms grow as the times change. I love recommending this podcast to my small and solo attorney clients. And then another one that was just left. The title of it, and I actually can't see the whole title, but it says Moshe promises and delivers something. It's by Mo123567, left on July 3rd. Moshe provides great content and insight with just the right balance of empathy and motivation to shift you into high gear to start or improve your law firm. His own bias toward action is contagious. In every episode, Moshe provides some content, insight, or both to help you take the steps needed to keep moving forward in your law firm owning journey. Don't miss a single episode. So for Mo123567, Viva JF, thank you very much for leaving those. First of all, those kind words it's awesome. I really appreciate that. But more importantly, for leaving something that somebody else can go and read and check out and see that this show is relevant, that this show is good, and at least they'll give it a try. So if you guys are not sure how to do it, by the way, and I don't know other podcast players, but I use the one built into my iPhone. So if you have an iPhone and you're in the podcast player listening, when you go onto the show and you have the list of episodes, if you scroll to the bottom of the list of episodes, it'll have the ratings and reviews. You'll be able to see how many stars we have. So right underneath that, there's a little purple link that says write a review. And you click on that, and it's pretty intuitive. And literally in 2 minutes, you can have that review done. So if you're on your phone and you're able to do that, we'd greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I'm just going to close out with this last thing. Remember, if you're interested in spending 90 minutes with me on a free coaching session, then you want to grab your spot now. ProfitWithLaw.com/free coaching. ProfitWithLaw.com/free coaching. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Thursday, or at least being in your ears with Brandon Osterbein. And then again next Tuesday, where we're going to jump into this financial conversation. So take care, enjoy the rest of your week, and just stay safe. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.